The morning air was crisp as Clint Eastwood eased his car down the winding coastal road of Monterey, California. The Pacific stretched out beside him, the waves rolling in slow and steady, a rhythm he'd come to appreciate over the years. At 94, he still craved moments like this. Solitude, the hum of an old jazz tune in the background, the freedom of an open road without expectations. He wasn't in a hurry. Retirement had loosened time's grip on him, yet he still felt the pull of routine. A stop at his favorite gas station for a coffee, maybe a quiet moment on the pier before the day fully began. But then, something made him slow down. At the edge of the gas station parking lot, just beyond the pumps, an elderly woman sat on the curb, wrapped in layers of ragged clothing. Her frail frame seemed swallowed by the fabric, her bony hands clutching a crumpled plastic grocery bag. Her shoes, worn and split at the soles, rested against the cold concrete. She didn't move, didn't speak. She just sat there, staring at something unseen in the distance. People walked past her without a second glance. A man in a business suit exited the store, coffee in hand, barely acknowledging her presence. A mother shuffled her child along, turning her body slightly as if shielding the kid from having to notice. Even the gas station clerk, leaning against the doorframe, looked at her for a second too long before disappearing inside. She wasn't begging. She wasn't causing trouble. She was just there. Clint felt his fingers tighten around the steering wheel. He had seen people like her before, countless times, but forgotten. The ones who faded into the background of a world too busy to care. Normally, he would have kept driving. Maybe it was a sign of age, or maybe just the wear of too many years spent watching the world lose its kindness. But something about this woman made him stop. He pulled into the gas station, cut the engine, and just sat there for a moment, studying her. Something felt off. She wasn't just another lost soul on the streets. There was something familiar in the way she sat, the way her hands trembled slightly as she gripped her bag. And when she finally lifted her head, her sunken, weary eyes locked onto his. That's when Clint saw it. Recognition. It was subtle. A flicker at first, a tightening around her mouth, the way her gaze didn't just pass over him like it did with everyone else. She knew him. But Clint couldn't place her. And that unsettled him. Clint stepped out of his car, the gravel crunching under his boots. The gas station was quiet, save for the occasional hum of an engine pulling in and out, the distant cry of seagulls circling overhead. The woman didn't look away. He approached slowly, cautious, not wanting to startle her. Up close, she looked even frailer than he first thought. Deep lines carved her face, her skin weathered like parchment left out in the sun too long. Yet, beneath the wear of time, there was something else. A quiet strength, an endurance that hadn't yet crumbled under the weight of years. She squinted up at him, her lips parting slightly, as if trying to form a thought she wasn't sure she wanted to say. "You need anything, ma'am?" Clint asked, his voice steady but gentle. She exhaled, almost like a laugh, but there was no humor in it. "Didn't think you'd recognize me." Clint's brow furrowed. There was a rasp in her voice, the kind that came from years of smoking, or maybe just time wearing a person down. "I don't," he admitted honestly. She nodded slowly, her fingers tightening around the plastic bag in her lap. It crinkled under her grip, the contents inside shifting slightly, though he couldn't see what she was holding onto so tightly. "You used to," she murmured. A silence settled between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. Clint was no stranger to lost memories creeping back when he least expected them. In his line of work, faces blurred, voices faded, time twisted everything together until the past became a fog he could only sometimes navigate. But something about the way she looked at him made him feel like this wasn't just another face he had forgotten. Still, he didn't push. Instead, he motioned toward the gas station. "Can I get you something? Coffee? A sandwich?" For a moment, she didn't answer, just looked at him like she was trying to decide if this was real, if he was real. Then, finally, she nodded. "Coffee. Black." Clint gave a small nod in return and turned toward the store. But just as he reached the door, her voice stopped him. "They used to call me Annie." The name landed like a weight in his chest. Clint froze. The door to the gas station was inches from his hand, but the name stopped him cold. Annie. It wasn't just a name. It was a memory, a face from the past, blurred by time but suddenly crashing into focus. He turned back, his breath slow and measured, but his heartbeat had picked up. Annie. It couldn't be. She studied him, her lips pressing together like she was waiting for the realization to hit, and it did. Hard. 50 years ago, Los Angeles. A different world, a different time. Clint wasn't the legend then. Not yet. He was just a man on the rise, juggling fame, the pressures of Hollywood, and a personal life that always seemed to be unraveling. And Annie was the woman he let slip through his fingers. The memories unraveled like a reel of film playing in his mind. She had been a waitress at a little diner he used to visit after late-night shoots. Back then, she was young, sharp, full of fire, the kind of woman who didn't care who he was. She gave him attitude, sarcasm, and the best damn coffee in town. They'd spent hours talking, laughing, arguing about everything and nothing, but life had pulled them apart. He got busier. The movie roles piled up, and his name became bigger than he ever imagined. And Annie, she disappeared. No goodbye, no trace. Just gone. Now here she was, sitting on a curb outside a gas station, looking nothing like the woman he once knew, but somehow still the same. Annie? He said, the name foreign on his tongue after all these years. She gave a small, almost sad smile. Took you long enough. Clint ran a hand over his face, trying to grasp what he was seeing, what he was feeling. What the hell happened to you? His voice was rougher than he intended. Annie exhaled through her nose, shaking her head. That's a long story, cowboy. But Clint wasn't leaving without an answer. Clint crouched down, his knees protesting the motion, but he barely noticed. His eyes never left Annie's face. She had disappeared from his life without a trace, and now here she was, older, worn down by time, but still Annie. And she had suffered. That much was clear. You think you could handle the long version? She asked, her voice edged with something between amusement and pain. Clint didn't answer right away. He just watched her. There was a weight behind her words, something deeper than a rough few years. This wasn't just bad luck or life taking a wrong turn. This was something else. I've got time, he said. Annie let out a slow breath. She looked away, her gaze drifting toward the passing cars, the people who didn't stop, who didn't care. I left LA in '79, she started, her voice quieter now. Figured I'd had enough of chasing dreams that never panned out. Thought I'd start fresh. Went up to Sacramento, got a job at a bookstore, met someone. We got married, thought it was a good thing. Clint didn't move. He already knew where this was going. But he wasn't a good man, she continued, her fingers tightening around the plastic bag in her lap. Started small, a little control here, a little gaslighting there. Before I knew it, I wasn't me anymore. She laughed bitterly. You ever wake up one day and realize you're living someone else's life? That you're a stranger in your own home? Clint clenched his jaw. He'd seen it happen before. To friends, to people in the industry, to women who stayed because they had nowhere else to go. I tried to leave, she said, her voice cracking for the first time. But he made sure I had nothing. No money, no car, no family left to call. I stuck it out for years because I thought... I don't know what I thought. That he'd change? That I could fix it? She shook her head. Stupid. Clint didn't say anything. He knew better than to call her that. I finally ran in '99, she continued, her eyes darkening with the memory. Left everything, just grabbed a bag and took off. Spent the next few years bouncing from place to place. Every time I got my footing, something knocked me back down. Jobs dried up, landlords hiked the rent, and before I knew it, this was my life. She gestured around them. The curb, the gas station, the nothingness. Clint swallowed hard. He had been filming blockbusters, making headlines, living his life, while Annie had been fighting to survive. He felt something burn in his chest, an anger that had nowhere to go. Why didn't you ever reach out? He finally asked. You knew I would have helped. She gave him a look, not of anger, not even resentment, just understanding. That's not how it works, Clint, she said softly. You don't ask for help when you've got nothing left. You just survive. And that hit him harder than anything else. Clint sat there, silent, the weight of Annie's words pressing down on him like a lead vest. She had survived, but at what cost? The world had moved on without her, without even noticing. She had slipped through the cracks, and that didn't sit right with him. Behind him, the gas station door chimed as someone walked out, coffee in hand. A couple by the pump stole glances, whispering to each other. People were starting to notice. A man in his 30s, holding a phone, lifted it discreetly. Clint knew the drill. The moment someone recognized him, cameras started rolling. He was used to it. But this wasn't for show. Annie noticed too. She shifted uncomfortably, adjusting the plastic bag in her lap, her fingers curling around the handles. It wasn't embarrassment. It was something else. Clint, she murmured, barely moving her lips. People are watching. He didn't care. Let them watch. He stood up slowly, his body stiff from crouching too long. The young guy recording hesitated, like he wasn't sure if he should lower his phone or keep filming. Clint met his gaze. "You waiting for something?" The man stammered, caught off guard. Sorry, I just..." "Then put it down," Clint said, his voice calm but firm. The man obeyed, slipping his phone into his pocket. The couple at the pump quickly turned their attention back to the gas meter, pretending they hadn't been eavesdropping. Clint sighed, rolling his shoulders before looking back at Annie. She was still sitting, still holding on to that bag like it was the last thing she owned in the world. It probably was. "You need a place to stay," he said, more of a statement than a question. Annie shook her head almost instantly. "I'm fine." "Like hell you are," she exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand across her forehead. "Look, I appreciate the concern, but I don't need some charity case moment with Clint Eastwood. I've made it this far on my own." Clint crossed his arms, barely. Her eyes shot up to his, and for a second he thought she was going to tell him off. But instead, she just sighed, her shoulders sagging. She was tired, not just physically tired, but in a way that years of hard living could do to a person. Before she could argue again, Clint reached into his jacket, pulling out his wallet. "I'm getting you a motel room," he said. "One with heat, a shower, and a damn lock on the door. You'll like it?" "Tough." Annie opened her mouth to protest, but nothing came out. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was exhaustion. Or maybe, just maybe, she was ready to stop running. And the world had been watching. But no one expected what Clint did next. The silence between them stretched. Annie's lips parted like she wanted to fight back, but the words never came. Clint wasn't giving her a choice, and she knew it. He wasn't doing this for publicity, wasn't trying to make a statement. This was personal. "Still," Annie hesitated, and after that she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, "What then?" Clint exhaled. "We'll figure it out." The words hung in the air, loaded with more meaning than either of them cared to unpack just yet. He pulled out a crisp stack of $100 bills and handed it to her without ceremony. Annie stared at it, unmoving. "I don't need." "Take it," Clint interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. "It's not a damn handout, it's a start." Her fingers trembled as she took the money, gripping it like it might disappear if she blinked too long. This wasn't just cash, this was a lifeline. But Clint wasn't worried. He pulled out his phone and started dialing. Annie watched, wary. "Who are you calling?" "An old friend," he answered. "Someone who still owes me a favor." He stepped away for a moment, his voice low as he spoke. Annie caught bits and pieces. Something about a house, a long-term plan, no strings attached. She swallowed hard. This was real. The gas station clerk had come back outside, watching from the doorway. A couple of cars had stopped, people pretending to check their phones while sneaking glances. Someone across the lot held up a camera again, recording in secret. And then, a voice cut through the moment. "Excuse me, sir, are you Clint Eastwood?" A woman in her late 40s stood a few feet away, holding her teenage son's arm. The boy, wide-eyed, looked between Clint and Annie like he had just stumbled into a movie scene. Clint didn't flinch. "Yeah." The woman hesitated, glancing at Annie, then softly she said, "That's really kind of you." Annie stiffened, shifting uncomfortably in her seat. She hated being someone's good deed of the day. But Clint turned to face the woman fully, his jaw set. "It's not kind," he said. "It's what should have happened a long time ago." The woman blinked, caught off guard. Then she gave a small nod, nudging her son along. Clint turned back to Annie. "Come on, let's get out of here." For the first time since he sat down, Annie didn't argue. She let him help her up, her grip weak but firm. The cameras caught it all, the way Clint guided her toward his car, the way Annie clutched that money like it was more than paper, but a second chance. By the time the video hit the internet, it shattered headlines. But Clint didn't care about that. Because for the first time in over 50 years, he had done right by Annie. The news cycle exploded. Clint Eastwood rescues homeless woman flooded social media. Interviews were requested, statements made, and celebrities chimed in. But Clint, he ignored it all. Because this wasn't about saving Annie, it was about giving her back the life that had been stolen from her. A week later, Annie sat at the kitchen table of a modest but warm home in Carmel by the sea. A real bed, a stocked fridge, a place to breathe. Clint sat across from her, sipping coffee. No cameras, no reporters, just them. "You gonna be okay?" he asked, watching her carefully. Annie smirked, setting down her mug. "Been okay this whole time, cowboy." Clint huffed a small laugh. "Yeah, sure." But they both knew the truth. She had been surviving. Now she could finally start living. Sometimes life pulls people apart. Time steals moments we thought we'd always have. But the past has a way of circling back when we least expect it. It's never too late to right a wrong. It's never too late to do what should have been done in the first place. And maybe, just maybe, it's never too late for a second chance. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Let's make kindness louder than silence.